Hello everybody, ODAT Nerd here, aka Terrence. This is the pre-recorded video that is going to play at the start of every Devember video. So what day is it? If you're watching this on the day that I recorded it, probably a day in December. What day? I don't know. I'm not creating 31 of these things. This is to tell you that we are working on the Devember project, which is a remote build system in Sublime Text. Now, down in the description, if I have done my job correctly, there should be a link to the playlist that has all of the videos in this series, which starts with the video that describes what the heck it is we're actually trying to build here. And this video will be a minimum of an hour long. I don't know how long it's going to go because I haven't recorded it yet. It's still November right now while I'm reading this to you out of my brain. It's not actually written down anywhere. I think that's probably easy to tell. I'm not very good at talking off the top of my head into a camera. So what are we going to be doing tonight? Don't know. Hopefully working on something really interesting, though. Probably should have thought that through a little bit more. In any case, we're going to go ahead and say the following. If you like these videos and you want to know when there's going to be more of them, subscribe to the channel, link in the description. If you're interested in videos that aren't live in nature, there's another channel I have that is going to be providing those. I have in the past and I will again. I'm just not right now because I'm doing this every day for December and it's taking up all my free time. Link to that is in the description. Like any videos that you find useful, comment on any videos if you have any questions, and most importantly, have a good time. So let's go ahead and give it to myself in the present, if you will, to continue on faceless because I don't have the sort of setup that allows me to stream my face while I'm working. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this rather noisy Monday, December the 17th. And I just realized my desk calendar is not set up. And if you were paying attention at the beginning of the stream, that went slightly wrong because I was busy telling my dog Walter to maybe not be such a naughty boy. This is the day where our apartment complex, our gated community, has a big party, and our lobby is the place where it's going on, and it's still going on. And he can hear people down the hallway. And as a grumpy old man, he doesn't want anybody to be having a good time. So expect me to perhaps pause my voice and show you the reticulating spline screen if someone from the party comes because they're absolutely raving about the stuff that we brought for noshing on there. A nice pumpkin pie dip, or if I have to tell him to please not bark so much, or if he starts barking at or being afraid of the wind because there is an incredible windstorm happening out there right now as well. It's a busy, busy day, not counting my visit to the dentist this morning. But nevertheless, things are potentially on track now. So let's go ahead and discuss strides made in Devember projects during today. And as you might notice, this is not Devember. This is Devember. And it's, I believe, totally doing that thing where there used to be a file that was different and there's not anymore. And it still thinks there is. So that's an intriguing turn of phrase. But in any case, this is what I have been working on and this. Now, let me tell you about my forays into using JSON with .NET. I started off by trying to see if there was something in the .NET class library that does JSON, and it turns out there is. There's this data contract JSON serializer class, and all it, it's super cool and requires you to mark up. I don't think there's even an example. The more complicated a topic in the .NET stuff, the less likely there is to be an example of it, as near as I can tell. But in any case, what's the magic of this thing? You have to mark up all of your classes with a special markup annotation function and all of your methods with an annotation, and then you can use a complicated call to serialize your object, which isn't what we want because we want our output to look like this. A nice, simple dictionary that's easy enough to process. And I should have realized this was going to be a problem because dictionaries in languages that are dynamic, like Python or Lua, are the data structure of choice. They're really easy to work with. Compiled languages, strongly typed languages, not as much fun. And I quickly decided that I didn't like data contract JSON serializer because you can't, at least I was unable to find a suitably non-ugly way to convert this JSON into uh, an object of some sort on the other end. And I spent a lot of time searching to see if anyone had any examples. And the first couple that popped up while I was searching for this specifically was this, and something that's only in .NET 4.6 or something and not in .NET Core. Some sort of web related technology that seems to do the exact same thing, but it's not available in .NET Core. And then I ran into this. And it says it's a popular high performance JSON framework for .NET. And it says download and it says source code. And it says it's version 12.0.1. And up here, it had a field that said pricing. And I didn't click on that because while I might find a paid library inherently interesting and useful for the purposes of a Devember project, that's not really something I want to do. I envision someone might want to work along with us. I don't want somebody to have to purchase a thing. And, I looked down through, easy to use, blah, blah. I didn't go far enough to notice that this says open source. I just saw pricing. And then everything I searched for magically was always a Stack Overflow answer that says just use JSON.NET. And I kept saying, I don't want to use JSON.NET. Is there any other way? And no matter how much I searched, JSON.NET popped up. And then I noticed that it was open source, and that does say source code. So that does mean, at the very least, you can have the code and use it. It doesn't mean you don't have to pay for it in certain circumstances, so I was still not interested. And then eventually, when I got frustrated because there was nothing else to do, I looked and noticed that apparently the .NET schema is the thing that you can purchase from $99, and even more so if you look and say you want to purchase it, you could totally get it for free for open source use, which is what we're doing. So presumably this would, if we cared, be a thing. And then I decided to start working on that, and their documentation is somewhere around here, I guess. There we go. I clicked on this link, and then I waited for 15 minutes, and nothing was happening. It was just spinning. And I used down or just me to discover that no, it's not down, it's just me. And while I was searching for alternative mirrors for the documentation, suddenly the site started working. So, hooray! And finally, progress was made, and the end result is this .NET program here, which is outside of the purview of the other package because I was just playing around. And I went through a lot of iterations on this particular operation. I spent better than 2 hours all told fiddling around with JSON.NET and serializer and looking at stuff before I eventually landed on this, which still isn't what I want, but apparently you got to cow to the man when the time comes. So as we can see, I have something that looks very similar. Now, if you watch closely, you'll note that this used to be a dictionary of those, and this was a dictionary of file names like this keyed on these objects. But it really seems like using this class, I want a dictionary, so I have to have something from from a generic collection, such as a dictionary like so, right? Which makes sense. It's a dictionary. I want a dictionary. Now, what do I want as a dictionary? Well, I want a dictionary of strings keys and string values, right? No, because this isn't a string, and a sub-object is apparently not a string, so that's not really what you want to have happen. So that doesn't work. So what's the next best thing? Keys, strings, values, objects. Now the structure, the way we want it, loads in and it becomes the world's most convoluted mess to actually work with the thing. So I eventually came up with, and again, this is one of those things where we've seen me do this in streams quite a bit. I came up with something that worked and then slowly iterated on it and ended up with something as simplistic as this to be able to create one of these deltas. Of course, you would imagine that these were not hard-coded type values. And using JSON convert serialize object, you can take an object and convert it into JSON. And you can take JSON and tell it to deserialize such an object, excuse me, and get some stuff, an object back, theoretically the same object you started with. And then as one last option, I have it taking the object that it got, putting it back into JSON and verifying that it's the same as the thing that came out, which was failing for a little while after I figured out this format.indented so that I didn't have to keep going over to this website for a JSON formatter to actually turn stuff into something that's readable. Incidentally, if you work with JSON a lot and you don't have this thing bookmarked, you may possibly be insane unless you have another tool that does the same thing. Feel like I should make a Python package for Sublime that sends selected JSON to this thing and formats it for you or something. Nevertheless, that as we run it, we can notice that, yeah, it passes. It prints that object, although it doesn't provide any sort of useful information except for knowing that it's a file delta. But what we've done is eschew the fact that these keys used to be dictionaries in favor of them being lists, because lists map to arrays. So what's the overall structure is first there's a file entry, name, SHA-1, last modified, and we can construct one, and there's properties to get and set. The add, modify, and remove are all delta lists, which is just a class that contains 3 lists of type file entry with the appropriate key name so that you can cram stuff in and out of those lists. And a file delta is a subclass of a dictionary that uses keys for strings and delta list objects, i.e. these for keys. You can create one and you can add a path to it, which automatically creates a delta list, assigns it to the key, and returns it back, allowing us to say, create a new file delta, add this path from the captured delta, add this file, remove this file, modify this file. Seems to be not overly awful, per se. If I had to iterate on this even more, I think I would throw I assume you can have overridden constructors. So, well, I guess that would need to be a static method, but something in this class that takes a JSON string and initializes using that, and something that can decode, so you don't got to do it this way. On the whole, I guess I'm okay with that. It seems like this would be maybe more of a pain to use on the Python end, but I haven't really actually written any code that needs to use these per se. So instead of gathering keys, I could just gather the objects and iterate over them. We've already got them sticking their names in there, so that seems like it's probably not that big of a deal. And I guess that we can come up with other similar classes. So all in all, not too terrible. Not what one might like, but nevertheless. Also, something we could do is have some sort of mod adapter method in the Python code that turns the output into this when it adds it to the message, and turns it from this back into an exploded dictionary when it receives it. If we really care, but do we? Do we really? I don't know if we do. So this has really sort of thrown me for a loop with regards to what we want to have happening here in this particular stream, because I was really hoping that that would go perhaps somewhat more smoothly than it transpires that it did. So I don't know how much more I want to fight with that for the remainder of the night, especially since the next thing that needs to happen realistically for us to get rolling would be also some configuration loading in the C# code. So maybe we could start with working on the networking protocol that we're going to use between these two things. And I might shuffle this into our other project. That might actually be a nice thing to do. Just the same way that there's a net test, we might have a .NET tests so that we can do .NET-y type stuff without having to pull it out into something like this. Although this is a nice build, I am using a different build system for this, which will get in the way if I put it in there. So we may have to tweak that up. So let's, what the hell? Let's go ahead and do that first. So I'll create a, I'll use this terminal. This is not normally the colors that I use for this thing, but we'll move .NET test into Devember 2018. See, and I think we want to modify. Yeah. Here's what we're going to do here. I copy that and paste it, but I'll fix this. And I'll name this and that as .NET tests, like so. So they're running in the appropriate project path. And I'm going to exclude .NET, whoops, not dingbat, .NET tests from there. And I will add it here. So now we have a couple of top level tasks. And isn't it interesting that it totally knows that those are untracked files? So that's actually kind of neat. CSproj and that. Oh, right. I do not play that game. Now, I imagine this window has to go away because that is going to be quite angry. I do not want to quit that, but I did want to actually quit and restart Sublime. So that worked out well in that regard. Ooh. I have it used to be extract. Ooh. The original file in the installed packages is now extract all packages. I changed it from extract package to extract package no thank you. There must be another one in there. I think that the appropriate time to extract a package is never. If I want to do that, I'll drop to the console and unzip it. I have caused myself so many problems. So we'll just go ahead and freshen this bad boy. Sorry, that one. Thank you. And we won't worry about that any longer. I wonder when that happened. It's a package that does not tend to toot its own horn, apparently. Now, what was I doing here? Oh yeah, I am extremely unhappy by the state of things that are Windows files. That's irritating in the extreme. Da, 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 da. What also is irritating is that they're UTF-8 with byte order mark. I don't know of a way to make that go away in the general case. I spent some time looking. Okay, so there's a couple of new files that are going to be committed, and those files are modified. Oh, yeah, because I totally tweaked them, didn't I? For this, we can jump into Smurge. Now that I did that part, I just wanted to see exactly what all that was going to do. And let's see, what stage that, we'll stage that, we'll stage that, and we'll wait on that one for just a second whilst I verify that that's doing the remote build. And if I do this, I feel like I should have more than one build system here. You know, because there's an array of them. I guess it's not going to prompt me because it's not the, yeah. I'll build that one. Just double check. Yeah, we want to do that one. We're building, we did it. We can clean nicely, and we can try to run it, and presumably it'll get mad. No, maybe it actually compiles. When you do that, I didn't notice it doing that before, but we'll also stage that and say also include our .NET tests library in this project. Much like we have a Python directory net test for doing some Python work without messing with the core code in the package, this adds a similar directory, I guess, for working with C# code in the same way. Currently, this shows how we can use JSON.NET to decode and encode some JSON data. And away we go. Now, this is the thing I don't like about, oh look, it's going to be, that's the reason why I wanted it to not do that. I wonder, am I specifically excluding? I am, aren't I? I'm going to quit and start again so that it notices that that's not there for the time being. Okay, because I think it's only doing that because of the project file and not because of other files. And just to see how this might work, if we searched for folders and didn't actually find any, and this was all commented out, and we commented out that and that, but we duplicated that line and uncommented it and dumped files, what would we get as our output? It looks like we would get one Devember path, and it would have the project stuff and .NET tests stuff. That's still top level project stuff. There's some net test stuff. There's the remote build server. So even though there's 3 folders, it still pulled that the way we would expect, which isn't something that I actually tested the other day, but it's the sort of thing that's good to know. We probably don't want that one, I suppose. Or we revert that one back. Oh, is that one just different forever now? For no good reason? Okay. Yeah, that's only mildly irritating. Okay. Now, what was it we were going to do again? I don't actually have. This is named socket test. This is the thing that actually is talking to the remote end. Now, I was thinking that for something like this, we do need to transmit our username and password, which we can't do unless there's actually a password specified. If there's not a password specified, we have to prompt for a password first and then um, try to make the connection. And we would need to send a message. Now, way back, I thought that the introduction message would be good for that. It has the protocol version in it, and you could have this stuff to introduce yourself. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that's maybe not the way to go. One reason is if we keep the introduction message as short as possible so that it just has um, the protocol version in it and nothing else, or some other small subset of data, that makes it easier in the server later when the version changes. We can not fiddle with that particular message and know that there's at least one message that's, say, never going to change, or hardly ever. We never say never, but maybe even when we're at protocol 19, the introduction message is still the same because it's just saying what's going on, and then everything after that changes. So, more importantly than that, you might have more than one build that you want to do. And I'm envisioning that when we start this build, we have to have that conversation I was talking about where we ask the other server to you ask the server, we're going to perform a build and we're going to perform a build in these folders. Give me your manifest for those folders. And the server has to come up with a list of those things and shuffle them. Um, Maybe what we want is something like a start build command where when you start build, you pass it the those those folders, and the server's response to that is either an error if it does if something is wrong, or um, the manifest. And the thing about that is there is a username and password here, and they're per host. So maybe username password have to be part of the introduction message. Username password in our actual host. So we could work on those a little bit because we'll need sort of more of them. And the way the conversation would work, I think, would be you would do an introduction to introduce yourself. The server either says yes or no, and then nothing happens until you declare your intent to start building with a build system. So we might say, hey, we're going to build in this folder, and the server can respond with a manifest, and then you send a build command later. Let's say you can keep sending build commands as often as you want, and when you're done with that build, um, you can either do nothing or you can send a new I want to start a new build in a different folder, and that makes the server spool up and send you the thing for the new one. And maybe there's even a goodbye type message that causes the server to close the connection to you when you're done. Um, and then there can be some state in there. And I think the thing we need to focus on here, and I know we are using up our, if you will, valuable development time by talking about what we're doing instead of actually doing it. But as I said, this sort of planning is part of Devember type projects. So it's not not unlike a lot of projects to try to think through the ramifications of these various decisions that we're making and how they might impact on things. Um, for example, we could say every time you want to perform a build, you have to tell it what folder. and it always has to give you a manifest back. The manifest might be particularly large, so maybe we don't want to do that. So maybe that's where that whole, you have to declare your intention that you're going to do another build. And there, I guess, would be a message for I'm going to execute a build now, and it would get mad at you if you weren't in the correct state, so to say. So let me get out my boogie board here, and I guess I better turn it on and erase what I have on here. This is a boogie board sync, which means I could write on it and then pull off the image for later. I don't think anybody needs to see that, but what are the messages that we want? Let's say we want an intro message, and the intro message is going to have our host name. It's going to have our platform, just so the server knows who we are in case it needs to know anything about things coming back. I'm not sure if it will or not, but remember, we do have our protocol versions numbered, and until we formalize on a real one, we can change things with impunity and then call whatever the final version 1. It's not like we have to keep bumping that during development. We'll need a username and a password. Now, what are the responses to intro? An intro could be, say, an error message, which is what we have, which has a code and a message, and that would be used for the server to tell you you have done something incorrectly. The server maybe wants to tell you if you have done something correctly that you have successfully logged in. That could be done by way of just a message. We might say that when we receive a message of type message, that its message is just displayed in the network output panel and we display it. So that would be like a, hello Terrence, build ready or something. We might have a set builder message. Okay, and what would that be? It would be a list of paths, say. I'm thinking out loud here that we would specify essentially this path here, and a list of them, let's say as a JSON list. That should be pretty easy to convey and decode on the other end without a class of some sort, just to tell the server what we think we're building. Because I'm envisioning that on the server, there's a configured cache folder where all build files are stored. There's going to be one folder for every user at a minimum. Inside that, there would be one folder for every platform in case you want to build the same project for multiple platforms. Multiple platforms means multiple computers. Or alternatively, we put the host name in there, and the platform doesn't necessarily matter. And inside there is the place where the folders will go. So by passing a list of the folders on this machine, we can come up with some sort of unique hash and use that as the final directory component on the other side to uniquely recognize this build. So every time you try to build with the same builds folders sorted the same way, and we can make sure we sort them into the path sort using that path sort thing that we were using yesterday. Every time we do it, let me just move my microphone here a second. Sorry for any noise. Then the server will know exactly who we are for the remainder of all of the builds. And changing the folders, including removing one, let's say, invalidates that cache because the state of things on our end has changed. And it's simple enough to get the server to clear those out. And we always have the option as part of a message to be able to declare I'm building in Devember 2018 remote build server, and that also includes the path Devember2018.net tests. And that's what's used as the hash. And while that's set, we might say we are redacting a folder from this. Now, this folder is no longer there, and that would allow the server to calculate a new hash based on the remaining folders, rename that directory, and it would still seamlessly work. So let's say that's what we're going to do there for set builder. Once we do that, then we can send a message, and one of those would be like an actual build message. But for our purposes, we might first want to know get manifest, which would have the servers grab the list of files from that folder and ship them to us. And then we would create one of our own, and we'd be able to create one of these file delta objects to know what we have to send to the other side. We would also need some sort of message to send file content or instructions. We'll worry about that in a while. That would be something like inside this path, here's a file, modify it with this data, or delete it, or I guess we don't need to necessarily do anything other than that. We either write the file or delete the file, and adding and modifying a file are both the same. We're just going to write the content. Later on, we can actually do something clever, like if we knew that we sent a file last time. If we wanted to on this end, we could use something like the Google diff library. I can't remember what it is, the name of it offhand, that comes up with a diff, but that's not like a standard diff. It's the list of the minimal number of instructions you need to take to convert one file into another. So we could really compress down how much data we send in a case such as that. But I think we have a fair bit to work on here, just because we're going to have to modify messages both in the client and on the server. So maybe we'll close that for the time being. We will leave remote build. We don't need file gather. We certainly don't need to look at that. We're going to leave that there for the time being. I guess we do have the net test code, but we do build server. Okay, so you init a message with the actual message, and you init an error message with an error code. So we would need to init, and I guess I'm doing that above stir in here. We would need to do that here. And what did I say are the things that we would put in here? We would put host in here. We would put platform in here. I don't even know that we necessarily need to pass those as arguments, come to think of it. I think, well, we'd have to look to see how to get a host name. Let's say user and password, and then self.user equals user, and self.password equals password. Remember, this isn't production code. This isn't encrypted in any way. In the future, we can use an encrypted SSL tunnel, and obviously do work to make sure that the password that you store there is maybe some sort of, it's hashed, requires you to type in a password to get your password, or any one of those numbers of types of things. So maybe let's go ahead and I'll do that over here. We're going to leave that one and reuse this one. I can switch to this tab. What was I going to search for? Python get current host name. Get username, get home directory, get host name. Oh, okay. That's I suppose that's simple. Import socket. Is there more to it than that? Returns a string containing the host name of the machine where the Python interpreter is currently executing. If you want to know the current machine's IP, you may want to use get host by name, get host name. Doesn't use get fully qualified domain name for that. Okay. Return a fully qualified domain name for a name. If name is omitted or empty, it's interpreted as the local host. To find the fully qualified name, the host returned by get host by adder is checked, followed by aliases. The first name, which includes a period, is selected in case no. Okay, so that is something. Get FQDN. Fully qualified domain name. Right on. Boy, this is like a really old. I think I've been using the same hostname file on this machine for the better part of 2 decades because that particular domain stopped being a going concern quite some time ago, I would imagine. Let's see. That does not seem to resolve. I wish I could say I was surprised, but I'm not. That's a company that I first started working with out of college, and then they got bought by a company, and they got bought by a company, and they got bought by a company. You know how that goes. Do I have socket imported in here? No, I don't. Okay, so we'll import socket like so, and throw this into our little this thing. There's the user, there's the password. Self.hostname is equal to ocket.that. And we could use a Sublime platform for this. I think there might also be a Python-y way to do it, but Linux, Windows, OS X, I'm going to say that's good enough. So, oops. And self.platform is equal to sublime.platform, which means we also need to import Sublime. Like so. So you would create an introduction message with a username and a password. It would have a host name and a platform. Now, here's some complicated action here. User equals 0. I'll leave the password out because that seems like a security hole. Host is that. Platform is 2 and version is 3. I'm kind of sad about the way that all works out, but self.user, whoops, self.user, self.hostname, self.platform, self.protocol version. Still message ID 0. Now we got more business here, which is what we might call an unfortunate state of affairs. According to my work monitor, I am going on vacation in 15 minutes. That must mean it's almost 9 o'clock. I should probably remember to mark myself as being out of the office so people stop scheduling me for meetings or they'll get mad when I don't show up. I can't remember if I said x is equal to struct.pack and I said 16 bytes and the string was high. But I did that. Then the length of x is 16, even though this string is not, and it was sort of null padded, and we have to remember to trim those off on the other end. Because if I said the length of b dot decode UTF-8, whoops, that's not b, it's x. There was just a b on it. That gives us 16, even though the length is the wrong thing. So we need to rstrip, I think. Oh, missed one. Now it's only 2 the way it's supposed to be. Right. Good, good. Hi.encode UTF-8 dot decode UTF-8 dot rstrip still works. Okay, because here's my thinking. Just verify. Good. So what if, okay, that length is, oh, we need to do extra work in there, don't we? Sorry. Yeesh. Struct.pack 16s, and then the actual string hi.encode UTF-8 to pack it into a bytes object, then decode it and strip off the side. So we get 2 when we told it that it was going to be 16. If we set it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, HELLO space there, we still get 16. So it, even though this is really long, the result is always only 16. And maybe if we didn't len it, we could see that it was in fact cutting like so. So that's good, because I couldn't quite remember, do you have to go out of your way to null pad and strip? And the answer is no. So hooray. When we encode an introduction message, we now have more action to do. So we have to do something similar to what message is doing. So we can pack it appropriately. Actually, no, we don't, because we're going to know exactly how big the thing is going to be. We do need to kind of make it look like this, though. So we'll copy that and bring it up here, because here's the theory, if you will. That's, we'll put this here. We don't need to do that per se, but we are doing that, which is going to be the length of the message, then the message ID. So there's your length of message. There's your message ID, which is what we want there. We have a B for a protocol version byte. So we'll leave that at the beginning, because then if we do want to change the introduction message later to something else, then we know that if we decode it as far as protocol version, we'll be able to look at that byte and see. We don't even really need to decode, because it's a single byte. You can actually just index into it and pull that byte out and know exactly how big it is. So that's probably not a big deal. The next thing after that, what's the information that we need to store in this message? We need to store the username. And we'll say the username can be 64, the password can be 64, the host name can be 64, and the platform, returns maybe OS X, Linux, or Windows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So maybe we'll say 8. Just because it's a nice round number. Waste a byte. Why not? So the first thing is going to be the length of the message. which is going to be 2 bytes for the message type plus 1 for the protocol version. Let's add these things down here that we were adding. Self.user, self.password, self.hostname, self.platform. Did I add one for? There's user, there's password, there's hostname, there's platform. So 2 bytes to store the message ID, 1 to store the protocol version, 64 to store the user, 64 to store the password, 64 to store the hostname, 8 to store the platform, and then we introduction message that business like so. And that seems like all that we would need to do, except that all of these are strings, so they need to be .encode UTF-8 tid so that they actually encode properly. And maybe that's going to be some sort of issue for the encode. The decode pulled the values out and then called. So now we're gonna have an issue. So we're gonna say hostname equals none and platform equals none. And then we can say hostname or, and we can say platform or, because we need to be able to have this use either the one we pass or just the one from the message, depending. So now when we decode, we need to decode this in a different order than we used to. So the first thing we're going to pull is the length. We don't care about that. Oh, sorry, not the length. The message ID. We'll do it this way. We don't even actually need a version, I don't think. We'll do it anyway. I got to double check this thing. User, then password, then host name, then platform is equal to struct.unpack this, except we don't want the I in there. Whoops. We don't want the I. And data. Like so. We said message and message protocol version is equal to that. So we're actually clobbering. That's something I want to double check. My understanding of how class things like that work. I think I tested it, but I'm not sure. If I create one and change it, does it change for the other one too? Now we need to say message is equal to introduction message. And the first thing we have to pass is user dot decode UTF-8. And then we get password dot decode UTF-8. We'll do it this way. Not devode, decode. And maybe that's also do that. So there's the username, there's password, hostname dot decode UTF-8. Now this is not really the nicest thing. Platform dot decode UTF-8. That's all the things that we're passing in that order, but we also, whoop, that way. We also need a .r strip to trim off the trailing null bytes that might have padded it on the right. Oh, fudge. There we go. So we create an introduction message by passing it a username, passing it a password, passing it a hostname, passing it a platform, converting those bytes from there to UTF-8 encoded strings, and stripping off any new lines on the right. And then message.protocol version is equal to version last because it doesn't come in the parameter, and then we can return it. So maybe we can actually test and see how well that works. From Devember 2018 dot messages, import introduction message. Introduction message gets mad. 2 required parameters. So we might say that the first parameter is T Martin and the second one for the password is my password goes here. And that's all we need to pass per se. Okay, self.message equals. Where did it do that? Line 88. Oh, there's no. I copied that from the other thing, I think. Okay, so go back to there. Do I stir it? User is T Martin. The host is PowerTrader. The platform is Linux, and the version is 1. That seems like it worked. And if I actually passed a different one of those, it comes across as the host. I'm going to guess if those work that the password probably worked too. The platform could be Windows if we wanted. Now, whoops. If I said X is equal to that, and Y is equal to introduction message, T Martin, empty password, and nothing else. And then I said x.protocol version is 5 or 6. Then stir X is that, and stir Y. T Martin egg with the password on Windows with version 6, and the other one's version remains unchanged. Okay, so we successfully, I think, have a version of the init message that's going to do what we want. We can pass it a host, a platform, a user, and a password, not necessarily in that order that I wrote them, and that can be transmitted to the other side. We could also decode one if we got one, but I don't know that we ever would. And with that in place, I think that means we would also maybe in messages in introduction, maybe we also do message just to see what does message do in this case, because we're going to need to fiddle that. Now we don't need to noodle around with message has either the constructor that you use to make one, or it has bytes and it actually decodes it. Okay, so we need to add the appropriate these things. That's not even properly documented. So public string, whoops, what order did I put them in here so we can do them in the same order? We'll just copy that and paste it over here in a way that'll make it all unhappy. String user and public string password. You can get it and you can private set it. And public string host name and platform. User password, hostname, platform. Thus. And I would imagine that we took those as arguments to message and then set them up. So string user, string password, string hostname, string platform. And here user equals user and password is password and hostname is hostname and platform is platform. So that's creating a message using arguments. Now, if it's not equal to not 3, but this number, oh, what? That did not copy as much as I thought. Oh, I copied too much. I see what I did there. Copy that. This is the part where I'm not sure. So it's not equal to the 2 plus 2 for the message type, plus 1 for the protocol, plus the username, then the password, and the host name and the platform. Then the message is invalid. Protocol version is still 0, 1, 2, but now we have to actually pull strings out of this thing, which is something that we did before. Like so. We'll do it this way first. User, password, host name, platform. And we're going to encode from that data. That's starting at position for a length, right? Oops, sorry, I had a little bit of an itch that I had to make on my ear. Why is there a comma in there? Did I have that over here? Did I do something wrong? Yeah, don't do that. The user starts at, let's see, 0 and 1 are the message type. 2 is that. So this is 3 for a length of 64. Which makes 63 and 3 is 67 for a length of 64. And 64 plus 67 are 131 for a length of 64. And 131 plus 64 is 195. And the length on that one is 8. 4 plus 2 plus 1 plus this, like so. 4 plus that. The 4 bytes we need to convey the length of the message plus the type code, which is 2 bytes, plus the protocol version plus the username plus the password plus the hostname plus the platform. And how did we do that over here? We have the length going in, which realistically, did I do that as, yeah, message.length -4? That seems like a good idea, because then it's just always right. Get bytes of message length -4 at position 0, because that's always 0. That's where we're copying, and the destination is into our message at position 0 for 4 bytes. Okay, and then that one can go away. So that part is definitely working. And then when we wanted to put a string in, that's the part where we may have issues, because we want to pad that size out to some degree. I'm not sure how that works. That might require popping into our other code base for a second. So yeah, let's not worry about that for the time being. Well, maybe we should, because we're going to need to know how to do it. The first thing we got to put in is the length. Then we put in the message type. Then we put in that. Now we already have the message type of introduction in there. So that part is working. For that part's still the same. So the first thing that's in there after there's the length, there's the message type, there's the protocol version. The next thing we need is from message bytes, which is UTF get bytes blah, of 0 into message at 10. So we're going to need, I think, both of those lines over here just temporarily, so we can see what we would do here. And we might say buffer.block copy into, what place are we copying from? We're copying from encoding.utf8.getBytes of, the very first thing that we're putting in is user at 0 into the message at position, let's see, it goes 0 for 4, 0, 1, 2, 3. Oh man, did I put those in the wrong spotsies? 0 and 4 is 4, 4 and 2 is 6, 6 and 1 is 7, for a length of 64, I think is the magic. Will this actually compile? Oh, whoops. We got to switch that build system back temporarily to that one. So we're compiling the right thing. All right, that seems to be okay. Now that's going to be an issue, I think, because the byte array that comes out of this isn't going to be long enough, so it's probably going to explode. But maybe we can. So 7 plus 64 is 71 for 64, and 71 plus 64 is 135 for 64, and 135 plus 64 is 199. And if it's user and password and host name, then this one is platform, and it's only 8 bytes. And then we return it back. And it seems to compile, but maybe we might want to do C# string to bytes with padding. I was hoping it wasn't going to be. Well, I guess maybe I don't want to left pad it. Maybe we want this. How about this? C#, ensure string is an exact length. Because we don't need to just make it too big. We also need to pull it down as well. You can't constrain it. If you want to make sure it isn't too long when passing it as a parameter, truncate it manually. Ay, chihuahua. So maybe we want some sort of magic add-on-y type method. I can't remember what those are called right now. I'm having a minor brain fart. But if we looked at main.cs, I'm pretty sure it's down here. I thought it was down there. Oh, right, sorry, it's in here. We have 2 byte string. Oh, okay, that's a different thing. That takes a byte array and turns it into a string that looks like a Python one, which we probably don't really need. We probably might want public static string padded byte array, this string and int length. And the idea is to either make the string bigger or smaller. Well, I guess I probably need to give this a name, right? Like so. Now, what might we, does this actually compile? No, I'm sure it caused a problem because this isn't returning anything and it needs to. Yeah, okay, so one thing we would do is this. If the length of the name is greater than the length, then substring it. So if input.length is greater than length, then input is equal to input.substring. Oh, is that 2 words? No. 0 length. Else input is equal to input.padWrite. I'm assuming is something that we want. Do, do, do. Oh, what's this? Limits the length to a defined length. If source is less than or equal to max length, return it, otherwise substring it. Okay, well that only does half of what I was actually interested in. But I guess I might say if it's greater than length, then return. We don't need to stash it, do we? And then in this case, we would return input.padWrite. I'm guessing, again, that that is actually what that would be called. No overload for padWrite takes 0 method. Hey, how about that? You. Returns a new string that left aligns the characters in this string by padding them on the right with the specified Unicode character for a specified total length. The total number of characters in the resulting string equal to the number of original characters plus any additional padding characters. So, the number of characters in the resulting string equal to the number of original plus, oh yeah, okay, returns string. A new string that is equivalent to this instance but left aligned and padded on the right with as many padding chart characters as needed to create a length of total width. If total width is less than the length of this instance, it returns a reference to the existing instance. Okay, so it doesn't trim it. So we might say length and 0. This isn't actually what we want to return this as. I remember now why I was doing it the way I was doing it. Then input is equal to that, else input is equal to that, and then we can return input dot that. Sorry. Return. Oh, shoopy-doo. UTF-8 get string? No, the opposite of get string. It bytes. Return encoding.utf8.get bytes of input. Now that should not compile because the return method is wrong, but if I change this to byte, then that looks nice. What do we got now? Oh, forgot that thing. Always forgetting stuff. There we go. We'll copy that over to here. Yeah, you be unhappy about that all you want. We might change all of these to, oh, I think we need to do it this way, don't we? User dot padded byte array. Might as well say 64 there, and then I can just manually change this to 8 and remove that. Okay. In the world of the purely theoretical, we can maybe do something like that. Oh, but we do need to fiddle-faddle this thing so that it returns the good stuff. And that looked like this. I've already forgotten how much of that I selected. Let's do the whole string, including quotes. Yeah. And user host platform version. Protocol version. Oh, because of that. Okay. The name host does not exist. Why? Just because I called it host name? You can't extrapolate that? Shame on you, C#. Okay, so that seems to be doing something now. As they say, watch this. We want test command. No. Remote build.py. I forgot I renamed it. We might say connect register. If connection is none, then register and self.connection.send. And the first thing we send is an introduction message. And who remembers the order of the arguments? User, password, host name, platform. And we're going to skip those two out. We'll just say user and password. User is T Martin and password is my password goes here. And I'm not using the password just because that's the name of the field, and this way we know it's definitely going to be something different. Now, I think, did I keep what the old one used to be? Yes, I did. Haha. So super T will now run our socket command to Dart. So it should, I think, complain. It's going to ask me for a message first and then say, okay, the notification closed. And we say what we received or we say that. So if we cd into remote build server .NET build and .NET run, then that seems to be okay. And missing two required positional. Oh, I didn't fix the something maybe. What did the server say? It seemed to have done something, but it was, whoops, got too many panels now. Remote build output. Receive error, init missed two required positional arguments, user and password. I think we know what's happening there. That was in this, right? We encode. Where does this string exist in Python files? We are coding it, register. Well, let's just double check everything, shall we? Okay, we know if it was a protocol message to register it, that shouldn't have changed. Get the bytes, call decode, abstract, abstract, abstract. This init takes username and password. Decode creates a message with a user and a password and a hostname and a platform. It's all of those. When you encode it, you do that. We register it. So those are fine. So where exactly did this go wrong? Receive error. I I'm assuming that it's calling from data in here, and that's where it's going awry. So let's double check. Did I do it in the wrong place? It's going to call decode, isn't it? Um, huh. Python exception print traceback. I know I've looked this up before. Print up to limit stack trace entries from traceback object. Oh, exception. I'm just Googling over here on another manner to see. Exceptions come equipped with a traceback attribute that contains the traceback. This attribute is also writable and can be conveniently set using with traceback. In pod to do, but that just says how to get it, not how to do something with it. You're trying to get the traceback that would have been printed if your exception had not been handled after it has already been handled. That's a harder question. Oh. Aye. The built-in class exception has a traceback attribute which contains a traceback object. Oh, so maybe that thing I looked up actually would work. Let's say I go to here and say import traceback and traceback dot print tb as e dot traceback. That's the network. I have to reload you so I can connect. Did that do anything? Receive queue put from data in message class decode data at messages.py line 103 in decode. Line messages 103. Oh, I think I might know. Well, it knows exactly at what point. I'm definitely calling introduction message there, I think. It might behoove me to do that, that, and that. I think. There we go. Now we got a no. Now we got a different issue, but we're getting close. Why are we getting this now at line 103? The error was what? Global name version is not defined. Why would it be? Are you not allowed to do that? Do I have to do this? Is that the problem? We do that. We do that. I need to set up. Global name log is not defined. Hey, well, we're getting closer now. It actually did it this time. Save that, close that, save that, and there we go. So just to double and triple check. We fire it up like so. And we say that. Oh, yeah, we have to start the thing again, don't we? Remote build server.net run. And there it goes. And it just, okay, connected, message connected. We got a message and then we received hello world. Introduction message object has no attribute message. Oh, well, I'm again not surprised. Maybe we'll just do that. Received introduction for user T Martin, hostname Dart, platform Linux version 1. And we received a message of hello world. And if I do it again, we just get the hello world part 2, but we don't send the introduction. So that part, we have successfully extended our introduction message to have all of the arguments that it's supposed to have. So that's nice. We already have an error message that has a code and a message, so we're okay with that. We have a message with text, so that's okay. The next thing we would need is the command to set the build directory, but that is the sort of thing that requires us to start having state in the client, and we have reached the end of tonight's time, although we did sort of get some issues sorted out. Now, I wanted, I should say, to create in much the same way we had a message and an error message. I wanted to have a JSON message that could have an arbitrarily defined message type in it, not the one that actually defines it as a JSON message, but just an int2 with sort of like a user data type thing, and then JSON data, and then the client could send arbitrary JSON data to the server by just taking an object and turning it into JSON and adding it to that message and putting a field in it that says this is JSON type 6, whatever. And then the server would use that to be able to know what the JSON was for. I guess that's still possible, but the fact that we sort of need to have our own classes defined for everything maybe makes that slightly more complicated. Or maybe we do it the same way that we do for protocol messages. That's something to think about, but we're going to call the stream for tonight. I need to go out to the lobby and collect various platters that our foods were placed on out there because the party seems to have quieted down, so I assume most people's are gone. So with that, I shall bid you a fond farewell. I'm going to check in this code and do a devlog, and we will catch you on Tuesday, December 18th. And until then, please have a sublime day.